Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever you're watching or listening to this, and welcome to Link Up Leaders, your direct link to leaders in supply chain and e-commerce. My name is Lisa Kinski. I'm your producer and co-host, and joined as always by Francois Geoffrey. Francois, how are you doing this morning?
I am fantastic this afternoon, but yes,
This
doing
afternoon.
great.
Oh my
It's already
gosh.
12:30. 1. It's already
It's
1.
one.
This day is flying by. I'm doing great though. How are you?
I'm good. How was your Christmas?
It was wonderful. I went to Boston. I went to Boston, spent it up there with Kate's family, and spending it with my family here next weekend, actually. So for New Year's weekend, we're going to be spending it with my family too.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah.
And I
How
saw
about
you
you?
got a lightsaber.
I didn't get a lightsaber. It was a funny
Oh,
video
okay.
that I
I
did
thought that was
not know was
yours.
being recorded. No. Her, well, I guess my brother-in-law to be went to Disney, and he went to the Star Wars because he's a big Star Wars fanatic.
Mhm.
And he got a bunch of different lightsabers, and it's really cool. You like switch out the crystals, and it like actually has real-time sound effects to it. And
Mhm.
it was cool. It was fun. It was after a few drinks. We started getting, the lightsabers out, and it was fun all around. A little bit too much eggnog, but all around great time. How about you? How did you spend your Christmas?
It was good. So we used to always go to my aunt and uncle's house every year. I have a large family on both sides. My mom is one of six, and my dad is one of five. So lots of cousins and aunts and uncles. And because of COVID, we haven't been able to go over there, but this year we were, and I got to meet three little baby cousins that I hadn't met yet because they were born, in the COVID
Yeah.
times. They're not yet two. So it was really, really good. Got to see the family and just see my parents, and it was great. I like, I don't know, I like seeing all my people at Christmas. For me, that's what Christmas is about. Is like what people say it should be about, is like seeing your people, and that's what I love about it. So
Yeah,
that was
it's an
yeah.
opportunity to gather. Really, any holiday is a great opportunity to gather, but I feel like
Yeah.
Christmas is like the one where mostly everyone is in a good mood. Even the ones that aren't typically in a good mood are
Mhm.
in a good mood this time of year. So
Yes. Some Scrooges need a little work, but yes,
yes,
indeed.
yeah,
Well, we are nearing the end of the year. I would say this is going to be our last episode of the year, but it's not. We actually have another one tomorrow. But we can still talk about what all has happened this year and what we're going to be looking forward to in the new
right.
year, and some new strategies and plans and goals. And so today, let's welcome back Stephen Selikoff for part 2 of his episode, which we didn't actually intend on doing when we first brought him on, but there was so much to talk about. Stephen, we're so excited to have you back on, and in such a short period of time. I'm really pumped because I thought there was going to be a long lead time, but no, you got us in before your trip. So I'm very excited. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, and Merry Christmas, both of you guys.
Merry
I
Christmas.
I celebrated by eating way too much, which is
Yeah, I
very
probably did
much of
too.
an annual tradition. I'm trying very hard to keep up with. So
It's important.
Yeah,
it
it's
is,
the best time of
it,
year to
it
eat
is
anything you want.
yes, because then you get that New Year's resolution that I'm going to lose weight that you put up on the mirror. And then, when it gets covered, gets wet or something, you kind of put it down and you think you're going to put it back up again. And by March, you remind yourself you have that New Year's resolution,
Mm-hmm.
and then comes that, traditional spring holiday of panic. I have to put on a bathing suit. So,
Yeah.
um,
This is all true.
different type of holiday, but again, an annual tradition. So it's very good.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Hopefully 2022 we keep this conversation also going. I don't know about you, but I know I've been seeing a lot of your posts also talk a lot more about just supply chain in depth and in great detail that I think a lot of conversations weren't happening until this year. Even in 2020 when the pandemic was sort of sparking some of these questions, I think, of these business owners. I'm excited to see those conversations develop and excited to continue seeing your posts on those conversations.
It will be interesting. To me, the biggest, we didn't think of the consequences decision of all of the supply chain issues started when President Trump began his tariffs and said, hey, what are we going to put into this first group? Let's throw in, I don't know, chassis that go under containers and get pulled by trucks, because who cares about those?
Yeah.
China retaliated and said, well, if you're not going to buy chassis, we're not going to import scrap metal to make chassis. And here we are, we came to, 2021. We have problems with truck chassis. We have a truck chassis shortage. And to me, that's the perfect example why you just should take all politicians, stick them into a kindergarten room together, tell them to learn how to play in the sandbox and let the rest of us do our business. Because, boy, everything went to heck in a handbasket these last 2 years.
Yeah, it did seem a lot of decisions, not necessarily by one administration or another, but a lot of supply chain decisions in the past 3 years since that started have been very short-sighted, right? It hasn't really been, hey, how is this going to impact us in the long run? How is that going to impact importing, exporting, consumer purchasing habits? How is that going to impact the value-add supply chain, both upstream and downstream? I mean, there's so many different topics of conversation today. I mean, even the Biden administration very recently in the past few days just enacted a new law that Xinjiang, any product produced or touched by any forced labor in Xinjiang won't be able to be imported, or you'll face severe penalties in the U.S., which, I completely understand, completely stand for, but it's not developed enough. It's not, hey, this is how you can actually look into your upstream supply chain to see if your products are impacted by this. And nobody has that foresight.
They haven't figured that one all the way out, because
right.
Normally you would think, okay, do they have something like BSCI certification or something like that? But what's going on right now in China with the inspection companies, and this is led by, SGS and Intertek on down, is they're saying, we're not going to go in and inspect to certify or not certify any company that we suspect might be using forced labor. So there's no way of actually confirming other than, whistleblower groups and, behind the scenes videos and stuff like that, because they won't even go into a shop to have to make that determination. So there is no official determination by, what we as entrepreneurs who are sourcing stuff in China normally know is the best and most objective way of finding things out. The politicians, they're 5 steps behind us on this one. Good intentions, but the execution is going to be difficult.
Yeah. I mean, who knows how that's actually going to be imposed. And here's the thing, and it's really a lack of education. And this is why, even last episode, we talked so much about just supply chain education in general, right? And that's why I just keep trying to tout that. It's so important to understand what it takes upstream. It's more than just knowing, hey, these few materials go into my product, but where are those materials sourced, right? Like, what if one of them are impacted by some regional disaster? How does that impact your supply chain? It's not a topic that comes up enough until it's too late, until it's 2 months down the road. You have all your campaigns planned out for 6 months and you have no idea what to do now. It's important.
It is. And on one hand, we see it happening all around us right now with the shortages on store shelves and in our own inventories and stuff like that. But I'll flip it around and point out that despite all of the problems we've had with supply chains, this last Christmas has been huge by every retailer standards. It exceeded and our National Retail Federation expectations. It exceeded Department of Commerce expectations. It exceeded Nielsen expectations, from, as we're going to talk about, in-store retailers to online, Amazon. All of the predictions, the dire predictions, didn't come true. People bought. They may not have found exactly what they wanted on the shelves. I was buying an overcoat and I had to go to 3 different stores, but people still bought. And I think that's a good sign for going into 2022. And as you know, there are some leading indicators saying that we should start seeing a decrease in actual shipping prices I mean, they're going through a bump right now, but someone's watching this 3 months from now are going to say, yeah, all the prices are coming down. And that's good news.
I mean,
Well,
it's good. And well, is that going to have like a knock-on effect as far as like distribution and warehousing though? Because everybody's kind of already full. And then if more people can afford to ship and send product, like the dam's going to break eventually with the warehousing. Like there's going to be another bottleneck, right?
You want to take this one or should I?
Well, I think it's both sides of the coin, right? There are a lot of warehouses that are at max capacity because their customers were successful in their supply chains, but there's also a lot of empty ones that their customers did not plan adequately. And I think there is going to be definitely that next level bottleneck, and we'll see that with UPS, with FedEx, with freight, with trucking, and maybe even those prices. The domestic shipping prices start to skyrocket because the ports are going to start to be cleared out. But I think that's all going to settle too. Stephen, to your point, do you think there's going to be a new normal when it comes to shipping prices, especially when it comes to overseas freight?
Yeah, I'll answer that in a different way. I don't think we're going back to what everyone used to think was normal. I think it's going to be a higher normal, but it's not going to be where it is now. It's going to drop down. But it's, first of all, the M2, the Alliance, One Alliance, they're basically controlling their alliance members, their steamship lines, and letting them know if they can do, raise prices, lower prices, and so on. We saw that last year. Costco, COSCO tried to change, but that didn't work. So I think that stranglehold is going to lessen. But the steamship lines themselves, they were losing close to $100 billion in the last 20 years. It's the margins are so tight. They want to have a more stable industry, so they're going to set their prices higher. They were talking about this back in 2015, 2016. We've got to reset our prices. So I think that's going to happen. But number one, everyone's pointing the fingers at them now. They are not going to keep their prices as elevated, artificially elevated as they are right now. The actual reasons, everything from, paying crews extra to stay on ships longer because they can't leave port, they can't leave the ship and get into port because of COVID, to just taking advantage of the situation, that's going to decrease. So I think that price is going to come down. And as far as the increase in shipments as shipping prices come down, I think that too, as you're saying, it's all going to settle out. We cannot keep up, or China cannot keep up, the momentum of products that are being sent across the Pacific, whether it's for retail sales, Amazon, online, in-store retail, or for manufacturing and just-in-time inventory. It's unsustainable to keep up the rate that they have had going for the last 7 or 8 months. So that rate has to decrease. And as it decreases and prices come down, it's going to be a little bit easier for those of us who are selling physical products. So I think we've got a light at the end of the tunnel, but we won't be seeing it till the second half of 2022. Maybe I should call it 2022 V2.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think, and all this will lead into our conversation also, but do you see, you're mentioning that it's unsustainable. Are you saying that it's more so going to diversify to other countries, or are you saying that they are going to produce, let's say, they're going to focus their production outside of the U.S. or outside of U.S. customers?
No, I think it's the rate of production going on in China. The rest of the world is going to get its wheels turning more smoothly again. Shipping itself is going to, and we'll talk about shipping in a moment. But production, this high rate of overproduction that's been going on in China for the last 6, 7, 8, 9 months now, just can't keep up. So we're going to see that drop, particularly if global inflation keeps those prices high. People's taste for purchasing more and more is going to drop a little bit. So I think we're going to see things get back to more of a normal, going back to your question. I think we're going to see that on the production side, on the shipping side as well, for multiple reasons. I think hopefully without some other crazy unexpected thing popping up, maybe there's sea monsters sitting on the bottom of the ocean we don't know about yet. But I'm pretty optimistic that by June, July of 2022, we're going to be looking at things that are more in the expected norm. Higher prices on shipping, but not where they are now.
Mhm.
More reasonable expectations in supply chains. Everything's pointing to it. So let's see what happens.
Okay. So the chaos
Okay.
will settle down a bit, at least.
Yeah.
Where, there's a little bit more predictability in the supply chain. Business owners are going to be able to make better business decisions based on the actual environment. It's less volatile.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I see that. I see that happening. I hope it happens for the sake of everyone, not
Mhm.
just the businesses, but also on the consumer end. I like to know when things are in stock and that I can go to the store and get what I need and not have to settle. But leading into that, what have you seen your clients face recently with the holiday season, and particularly in retail, those that are going omnichannel from just their own e-commerce store into the retail? We talked a little bit about one of your clients that took a TikTok strategy into a few different stores. How did that work out?
That worked very, very well. TikTok is, I saw something, about a week or two ago. TikTok has overtaken
Yep.
QVC, which is the online shopping network,
Oh.
for the amount of products sold. And
Oh, I didn't know that.
it is huge. There's a clothing line, a Chinese clothing line called Shine, which has
Uh-huh.
really done an incredible job of leveraging TikTok and YouTube. But TikTok's really where their success is. And what they've done is they've really driven micro influencers on TikTok. So once you become an influencer that's associated with Shine, you get paid by them like other influencers, but Shine doesn't pay as much as other influencers. They pay very little. Instead, they say, hey, we're going to give you store credit for whatever you want in our
Mhm.
store. So we all know how multipliers work. So let's say that Shine's got a product that's selling for $40, and it only costs, because they're a Chinese company, it costs them $2 to create the product.
Mhm.
So they say, hey, influencer, we're going to give you $100 worth of credit, which is really $4.50 out of their pocket. But the influencer gets $100 worth of credit and $25 check cut to them.
Mhm.
Well, now Shines gets all of this incredible exposure for that $25 check and another, whatever it was I just said, was it $4.50 or whatever it is, out of their pocket, and they're getting tons of exposure. And they have
Mhm.
really just honed this technique so well that everybody's talking, oh, look, I got this wonderful thing from Shine. I got lingerie, I got a shirt, I got a hat from Shine, and everyone wants to get it. What a brilliant strategy. And it's something we can all learn from. But when you sell across all channels, from retail to online, to Amazon, to TikTok or Instagram or wherever it is that you're promoting your items, and then your product is available wherever somebody wants to buy it, that makes everything wonderful. You don't want someone to think, hey, I saw this wonderful little, you'll love this little gadget. I saw this wonderful little paper example of corrugate and I want to buy it. So now I'm walking to a store and I see it and I say, oh, I saw that online. I want to buy that. I walk into, I watch a video. Oh, I want to buy that. I'm looking for something else online and I see it. Oh, I want to buy that. You want to be anywhere that your customers want to buy. And if you're promoting yourself on places like TikTok, even if someone doesn't purchase it when they're looking at the video, you want to be wherever it is that they walk in carrying their wallet or their pocketbook, because you want to be there when they do make that purchasing decision.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. And how did they take, if or anything that you could share, but how did they take this TikTok strategy into these different stores? Did they come to them with just data and statistics from the insights that TikTok provides? Did they show them sales data? I guess how do they
I
lead from?
I can't share
Okay.
Okay.
any of the details there. I can say that when retailers see something blow up online,
Mm-hmm.
they're interested.
Okay.
Mm,
That makes
And that
sense.
speaks volumes.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and the stat that I thought that you were going to share about TikTok, I didn't realize that they'd overtaken QVC for, numbers of products sold. They've also just taken over Google as the site with the most visits in 2021. So Google is no longer the leader of most visits. Now TikTok is,
Isn't
which
that
wow.
sobering?
that is insane to me. I'm not a big TikToker. Maybe to somebody who is, I don't know. It just, that's good gravy. We're Googling stuff all the time, constantly in our office. That's just nuts to me. But I mean, if
Well,
that's where
take
the
it a
people
step
are.
further. Google search is integrated into so many applications that you're not
Mm,
just bringing up Google and using it. It's coming from multiple sources and feeding it to Google. And yet TikTok, just out of sheer entertainment value, is people are going to that app. That's staggering. One other thing that I had learned recently, which wasn't aware of at the time, was, if you remember, a year and a half ago, there was a big thing politically saying, "Oh, we're going to ban TikTok and
mm,
everything."
Mm.
That was discreetly and quietly removed. There's no threat to TikTok. That was removed in June of this year. So
mhm.
it's there and stable and so on.
Yeah, it's here to stay. I remember that being a big thing. There was a fight over if somebody was going to buy it, or, you know, I remember that whole thing, and everybody's
It
like, "Oh my
also
God."
means that your WeChat is also
Yes,
stable and safe. That was part of the same
that's what we were
uproar.
worried about. Yeah, that
So,
was the part that we were kind of more concerned about. But the world was talking about TikTok. We were like, it also affects WeChat.
well,
That's
we're
important.
the cognoscente. We know things the rest of the world doesn't. We know how the business of selling products works, and
Mhm.
things like that are important to us as business people. I tell all of my folks, it doesn't matter how you communicate with your suppliers as long as you're communicating with them. But
Mhm.
if you communicate with them on WeChat, you're showing that you understand how they communicate, how they do business, how what their culture is like. And when you're looking to negotiate terms or price or anything other aspect of your product and its development, you have a little bit of an upper edge because you seem to be more aware and experienced and knowledgeable and professional than the person who doesn't use WeChat.
Mm.
And the communication is still important, but in this case, like Marshall McLuhan said, the medium is the massage. The fact that you're on WeChat, so that helps us as businesses.
It's a
Mm.
really good
Mm.
point. That's a good take home.
And taking or driving into that sort of relationship, for example, using WeChat for developing a relationship, would you advise that a business owner tell them before even approaching other stores? Let's say they wanted to get into Target or they wanted to get into the Walmart stores or Home Depot. Is that a conversation that they need to have with their suppliers first in order to prepare them? Or is that something where once they have the conversation going with the retailers, then they come back and say, hey, I have this very lucrative and promising venture that I'm going after. How can we work with this together?
What a wonderful question. Yeah, no, absolutely at the beginning. And you don't have to name off the retailers. Oftentimes, you may still be in preliminary discussions with them,
Mm.
but it's part of your strategy. And when you share what that strategy is without giving the details, you don't need to, you're letting the retailer know a few things. Number one, that your price constraints are higher than people who are selling online. I'll talk about that in a moment. That your quantities are going to be much higher than people who sell online. And also that it really takes a lot of the circumvention risk out of that. So let's start with that first. A lot of Chinese sellers know how to get on Amazon. They know how to sell online. They know how to sell. If it's not Amazon, it's, Wish and AliExpress and others. But frankly, there are so many folks who'll teach them how to sell on Amazon that we all know how Chinese sellers are getting out there and selling. So they don't know how to get into retailers. I can't. There are oftentimes what they'll do. Let's use Home Depot, for example. They'll have a distributor visit their factories or virtually visit them these days and say, hey, look, I'm selling to a whole bunch of Home Depots. Let's take a look what you have. And if it's interesting, I'll buy them and sell them to Home Depot. So they see the stuff that's most interesting. They go to the Home Depot buyer and say, hey, we got this. Home Depot say, whoa, interested in that one. They go back to the factory and say, we'll do it. The factories are not doing it themselves. They don't understand how to get a vendor number, get into the vendor system, how to respond to a buyer, or even have the ability to respond the same day that the buyer asks a question because of the time difference. They don't know how to package things the way that American consumers expect to see things packaged. They haven't walked into the store regularly like American business owners. And frankly, an Australian could walk into Bunnings and see exactly the same thing that an Australian could walk into Bunnings and see what an American could see walking into Home Depot or Lowe's. China doesn't have that experience. Even their Walmarts look different. So they can't put that as part of their strategy. So you don't have to worry about them going behind your back. Of course, still have an NNN, so there's a non-circumvent agreement, but you don't have to worry about them circumventing you. Instead, now you are much more attractive to them because you're looking to sell something that's high quantity that they can't get into on their own. They want to do business with you. The second is the quantities. And we should pull up this spreadsheet in a moment. We can go through what the quantities are when you sell to retailers, but it's huge. So, when they're talking to someone on Amazon and they're saying, hey, we're going to start off with a 300 unit order, and maybe, that might get up to a 3,000 unit order or maybe a 30,000 unit order. When you're talking retailers, it's, how many containers are we going to be shipping out this year? It's a completely different discussion. And then there was that first part of it, which was, I did 3 points and I completely forgot the first because I counted backwards in the 3 points. One was the quantities that they're not going to
the price constraints also
circumvent. Oh, price. Oh, yes. So this is really interesting. Suppliers know what your price constraints are when they find out where you're selling. And by the way, just a quick aside, when a supplier says to you, where are you selling? The answer is not Amazon or retailers or wherever. The answer is United States, UK, Brazil, Australia. That's what the answer is, because they don't need to know what your platform is. They may be hoping that you tell them, but they don't need to know that right away. On the other hand, if they've got something that has a patent in the US and not in Brazil, and you tell them I'm selling in the US, good ones will tell you, you can't sell this one in the US. If they say Brazil, oh yeah, this one can't sell in the US, but it can be sold in Brazil, the good ones will tell you that. But when you get to that point and you do tell them what your sales platform is going to be, that's important. Because if you're selling to retailers, you have the highest constraint for price because you have the keystone to retailers. If you're a distributor, you probably have to keystone. That means doubling the price, 50% margin. But you could probably get away with less. So now your constraints are here. If you're selling online, people online are still doing that 30 garbage that they learned from 2014 ASM. It doesn't work anymore in these days of PPC and new Amazon fees, but they'll still settle for a 3x multiplier on a product, which is crazy. And the suppliers know that. So when you say, I'm selling online to Amazon or my own Shopify store, they're saying, oh, yeah, hey, these guys, we can push them and get this price all the way up here, because they'll still say yes. Even if they're losing money, they may not even know it. Distributors, we can push to here. If they're selling to retailers, we know we have to put the price here or they're going to walk, and they are the goose that laid the golden egg because retailers have such huge amounts of orders. We want to make them happy. So yes, for all those reasons, only pluses come from it. Right from the beginning, mention that part of your strategy.
And so when it comes to, let's say, quantities, and you're working with current suppliers, obviously a big topic of conversation with the retailers is also bottlenecks, right? And throughputs, and understanding the capacity and understanding the machinery, and what we were talking about earlier, the upstream supply chain, and a lot of times traceability, right? Particularly when it comes to wooden products or lumber. They want to know where that's coming from. Especially with anti-dumping and countervailing duties being so prevalent and part of the conversation nowadays. I guess at what point, if someone hasn't done all of this upstream auditing, at what point do you start to audit your suppliers and start to have those conversations about traceability?
I'm going to say this regardless of whether you sell to retailers or only sell online. Start with an audit. It's going to cost you a few $100s. Get a professional inspection company to go in and do an audit. I don't care what the supplier says. Oh, we had an audit. It's a pain for us to do an audit. If they come up with too many excuses not to do an audit, walk away from them. Why do you want to do an audit? Because your competitors are not. Comes down to, it's as simple as that. You absolutely want to do it because of upstream reasons. You want to do it because you want to make sure that your supplier's really a factory. If you're looking for a factory, if you're looking for a trading company, you'll find out that too. You'll find out if there's legal problems, all sorts of reasons for that to do an audit. But frankly, in practical terms, it helps so much when you begin your negotiations because you appear to be different than anyone else they're doing business with. Just the sheer professionalism that comes across by saying, absolutely, we're going to talk about price and quantities and everything else. But first, I want to make sure we get an audit done because I don't deal with factories before I can have an audit done. And they're thinking, who is this person? They're talking to us and setting these, establishing a level of business professionalism that we're not used to getting from someone who just reaches out on Alibaba and says, hey, can I get 200 cell phone covers, and I'm a middle management at my company, and my boss says I have to bring the price down, and all those tricks that they're already aware of because they've seen the same YouTube videos. You're coming in and saying, yeah, look, I'm a professional. We're going to treat this like a professional. I'm having an audit done. And you do that, and every subsequent conversation you have with them is going to be so different. And you want to, you have a price that's, I don't know, $11 a unit. You want to get it down to $8 a unit. And you just tell them, no, it has to be $8 or I'm going to walk. They're going to say, bye-bye. You have an audit done beforehand. You talk to them the fact that you're selling to retailers. We're going to be looking, what's your quantity? We don't know yet. We'll find out from the retailers, but this is what the strategy is. We're going to find out between you and I if this is something we can do. And then we'll find out what's happening from the retailers on quantities. But before we even get there, we need to have an audit done. That's a completely different conversation. Now, when they say 11, you come back to them and say, no, we can't do with that. It's got to be 8. What can we do together to get to that point? They want to work with you and get to that point.
Yeah, a key word being together. What can we do together to get to that number, right? It's whether it's quantities, whether it's, hey, can we negotiate better pricing terms? And the audit, I mean, that's one of the first 3 things that retailers, I think, would typically ask, right? They'll ask about the product, 100%. They're always going to be focusing on quality and understanding compliance. The pricing, of course, they have to understand their margins, making sure they're making a buck. And the audit is usually that third thing where they say, hey, we're not going to proceed forward. The pricing looks good. The product looks great, but we have to do our own audit, whether that's with SGS or Intertech or Benchmark or any of these larger auditing corporations. And they'll typically have their own representatives, right?
And Walmart has their own audits, and Disney has their audits, and Home Depot has their audits. And sometimes it's going to be, $450. And the factory or the supplier is going to say, well, I've never had a Walmart audit or Disney audit or Home Depot audit, and I don't want to pay for it. Well, right there, you've got red flags going off because it leads to so much business for them. Number one, why don't they want it? Number two, why can't they afford, $400, $500, $800, $1,200? That's not much when you're looking at $300,000-$400,000 worth of sales. So that itself gives off red flags. But it all comes back to making sure you've got the right product, the right supplier, the right multipliers, and you're thinking, I want to treat this like a business, not just a side gig.
Yeah. And I mean, when it comes to audits, I think one fear, because we've also worked with factories and businesses on both ends to complete audits when they're going into big box retailers. And it's no easy feat, right? It sometimes takes a few weeks. It requires multiple audits. They have quarterly check-ins with documentation. They have critical action reports, testing all the time.
You're making claims about something. Oh, it's going to be, this will prevent COVID. Whoops, red lights. Right. Even if something says it's going to make your, let's see, it's going to make your clothes come out, bluer instead of whiter, if it's a special blue dye or something like that. That's got to be checked as well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot. No one wants to put something on their store shelves that says this is going to do 1, 2, 3, and then not be able to back that up.
Yeah. That's the quickest way to get a bunch of negative reviews, I think, to not
just negative reviews, but on store shelves, there's basically 2 things that are going to be that'll kick you off of store shelves. One, not being able to deliver on the day that you're obligated to deliver, and then having products that are not able to perform as you say they're going to perform. Other than that, frankly, you get locked in a big box store and you're selling, I'll go back to this wonderful, we'll have to talk about this at one point, but this wonderful little tool for seeing what different sizes of corrugates are for your packaging. And it goes out there and it's selling really well, and someone else comes along and says, hey, big boxer, I can sell this to your store and I can save you 10 cents per unit. They're going to say, thank you, but no, thank you. We already have a relationship. We know they're dependable. We know the products work. We know that they get delivered on time. We're not going to start with you brand new just because you're going to compete a little bit on price. So that whole philosophy of Amazon of saying, hey, this person drops it by a few pennies, and this person drops it by a few pennies, and this person drops it by a few pennies, and suddenly you're in a race to the bottom. That doesn't happen with retailers. They're not interested in that. They're interested in whether or not the product's delivered on time and whether or not it delivers what it promises to do. So that comes back to the audits. You want to make sure that your factory can actually make that product do what it says it's going to do, get it tested and so on. And then, as you were alluding to, that you've got the ability to be able to produce the quantities that are required. And as you know, often that means having 2 or 3 factories all producing your product consistently.
Right. Well, but what about like the smaller retailers? Like, are they looking as heavily into these on-time delivery dates and that it's going to perform the way it's supposed to as like Walmart and other places with higher like quality departments are?
Second question first. The quality, absolutely. Even more so, because oftentimes independent specialties, they have a personal relationship with their customers. They know who's coming in and out of the door. They want to bring new customers in, which your product can do, but they know the ones that are coming in. They know their families. They'll talk about their kids, their dogs. And if something's not working, they're going to hear about it. And as far as the delivery and the quantities, those stores are selling by what's called case packs. That's the inner carton of your product. They're not buying container loads, but they're buying them right away. When you make a sale to a small and independent retailer, specialty retailer, they're saying, yep, let's buy that. And then you literally tell your 3PL, send out a case pack, slap a label on it. Don't have to open it up. Don't have to go through all the cost of the stuff of pick and pack. Just slap a label on a case pack, send it out the next day. So they're making big boxes. They make a purchase. It's months, maybe 60 days before they expect to have it delivered. Independent and specialty retailers, they make a purchase. It comes the next day. As soon as they say, let's make a purchase. And I love this part. They pay up front. And they pay for shipping. So now you've got your product going out there. That shipping's not coming out of your pocket. That's coming out of their pocket. It might even be on their FedEx account if it works out nicely. And it happens immediately. So the timing, very different story. The quality, absolutely, because you've got to have the high quality.
Yeah.
Well, and to that point, I think for the past few years, at least, the conversations that I've had haven't been centered around so much timing. They've been centered around pricing. Everyone wants to get the race to the $8 instead of the $11, for example. What can business owners and purchasing managers, what can they do to prepare their supply chain to have those conversations with the big box retailers? What data and statistics and lead times should they have prepared? Because it's more than just saying, it typically takes my factory 30 days, and it usually takes about 25 days, and Amazon takes 3 weeks to check. It's much more than that, I feel. What numbers should they be looking at and paying attention to even pitch to the retailers?
So real good question. So when you're looking at small and independent retailers, specialty retailers, those are the ones that own their store, or they may own a small chain of 4 or 5 stores. That's one conversation. When you're dealing with big box stores, it's a different conversation. And then how you make the sale is a third conversation. So let's start with big box stores. Big box stores, decisions are made by a buyer in a corporate office for 1,000 stores, and they're very large stores. And if he pulls up his computer, he can see the layout of every product on every shelf of that store, click and see the same thing for another store. You make that sale to the buyer. First time, he definitely has to have approval from his boss. You get into the system, everything's done the way we used to do it on Amazon back in 2008 and 2009, where everything's done by flat files. It's a lot of electronic EDI, electronic data interchange, uploading stuff, Excel spreadsheets. And in there is a wonderful field that asks what is the time between placing an order and being able to have an order delivered. So you fill that in and you actually say it's going to take 60 days, 75 days. And you know this because you've already worked with your supplier. You don't come right out of the gate and say, I'm going right into Home Depot. You've worked with your supplier for a while. You've worked out all of the kinks of the product and the supply line. And then when you tell them it's going to take 60 days or 75 days, at that point, you're pretty confident. You know how long it's going to take. If something happens, communicate. But if something's happening for you, like all of these backups at in Los Angeles and Long Beach, it's happening to all of their suppliers. It's happening to themselves. And frankly, a lot of big box stores will just take possession in China. So you don't even have to worry about the shipping part of it. So that's one conversation. The next conversation is the independents and specialty retailers. In that case, when you're offering them a product, here's a catalog from some sort of promotional company, small items. Wonderful little dog collars. When you offer them something, it's either available immediately, or you may even, be offering something in January that's not available until June, which is okay because a lot of retailers at the retail shows will make purchases in January that they ask not even be delivered until October because it's for fourth quarter. So if it's saying available immediately, they expect it immediately. If it's saying available in June and you're selling it in January, they expect it in June. And that brings up the third part of the timing, which is it also impacts how you make the sale. So and this is just a random catalog from a seller, but let's say, here we go. They have got, I think these are coaster magnets. Okay. So coaster magnet that says dog mom. All right. And let's say there's a little thing next to it that says available in June, and this is from the January shows. You may not even have that product existing yet.
Mhm.
Perhaps you as a manufacturer only have it in your head, and you're wondering, do enough people want to buy a magnetic coaster that says Dog Mom for me to go ahead with production and begin it? So a lot of people see the catalog, they see you at the shows, they say, yep, that looks fabulous. I want to order a whole bunch. And you say, this is going to be a big seller. I'll see someone wants the Dog Mom coaster right now.
Sorry.
Lisa, this is going on you know, this, your doggies want this. So you say, okay, a bunch of people want it. I'm going to start production. But let's say nobody wants it. Then you don't begin production at all because there's not enough of a demand. When you're selling to retailers and you have ability like this, you can actually test products before you begin production. So you're not putting money into inventory for things that don't sell. And there's all sorts of little things like that that really make it so financially appealing. When I had talking about dogs, I had a great line of products with pillowcases. I don't know if you talked about it last time, but where one half the bed says the dog sleeps here, one half the bed says the wife sleeps here in the corner, the husband sleeps here. Yes. Well, I came out with ones that were more romantic. You know, I love you more. We had the same thing in Spanish. Always kiss me goodnight. I forget what the companion was and so on. But people thought of us so much as being specifically in the pet niche. They didn't want to expand out to these romance pillowcases. That's okay. I never made a single one because I got the feedback saying, we're going to buy tons of these, but we're not interested in these. And therefore, I didn't have to go with them. And they looked real. They were in the catalog. Didn't cost me more than, you know, an extra page in my book. So that's a great opportunity there. So your timing on that is very simple. You put something out there that doesn't exist. You say it'll be ready in a few months' time. If people order it, you start your production. You have it. You're ready to sell. If not, we decided not to go with that line.
That was going to be my next question. Yeah. Do you just tell them, hey, we decided to pivot or just not go with the line at all?
And if they weren't interested in the first place, they don't care.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. It was just an additional product. One thing that we haven't touched on, we touched on a little bit last time, but that's packaging and how that plays into big box stores, right? And even specialty retailers. I think maybe we can combine them both. Correct me if I'm wrong, but how does that differ from packaging for e-commerce? I guess, when do you start to think that through? Is that something that you talk through with the buyers?
Oh, gosh. Big box stores, buyers will give you feedback, and they may want something changed. Give you an example of the exact same product we just talked about.
I love that he always has real life examples with him. He's so ready to go. I love it.
I do my own products. I'll plug something right now. You'll be the first people to hear this. I'm starting a new program in January where I'm actually going to be introducing, creating a new innovative product from scratch. No one's ever seen before. We're going to go through the entire validation process, the design process, validating the design, the packaging, the manufacturing, the supply chain, sales to retailers, right onto retailer shelves. And it's going to be a come along on the journey. And it's going to be a simple program for twice a month. We'll meet and everyone gets to see what we're doing with the actual product coming on through to make sales. Because
that's awesome.
You know, Lisa, I am a product guy. I do my own products. I'm not one of these people who say I've given up products to become a coach. I love products. But coming back to packaging, so this package was for independents and specialty retailers.
Okay.
Bed Bath & Beyond didn't like that the opening was at the bottom. They had us move the opening to the top, and we had a zipper. And then Francesca's wanted, and this had a stick-on label on this, but they wanted more rustic packaging. So it's the exact same product, completely different format of packaging.
Yeah.
And online, just a PP bag.
Totally different. Yeah.
Exact same product. Now, what happens is there is a fabulous reason for having fancy packaging online, and that is just to get around Amazon's bull crap.
You can say it.
You could say it.
Good.
It's a bunch of
Amazon's bullshit rules. Put up a picture of your product on the white background in the packaging or right in front of the packaging, and you can put so much on that packaging that you can't normally get away with. It's a wonderful way of promoting your product on that picture. But the reality is, and I know so many people disagree with me on this, having a fancy package, when it comes in that box, that corrugate brown box or white bag that comes from Amazon, people see it, they look at it for a moment, they open it up, and they go on to the product. That's it. The product's great, fabulous. If it's got really nice packaging, people will simply think, aha, this is also sold in retail because it looks like it has nice packaging. People do not buy for the packaging. So I don't care if you mock up only one single package and use it in your photo, do it. But if anything you're doing in your packaging is going to cost more than it would have if you didn't do it, then don't do it. Don't increase your cost of goods for fancy packaging if you're only selling online. It's not going to increase your sales. The sales occur when someone is looking at it on their phone or on the computer, not when they have it in their hands. In contrast, on-store sales is completely different. 62% of customers say that they will buy a product based just on the packaging without looking at it on their phone. And a lot of others will look it up on their phone, but 62% just from packaging. Packaging is your listing, and it has to do a whole lot of things at the same time. When a customer goes through, we're talking about big box stores, they can go into the big box store, they know in their head, oh, I've got to get this, this, and this. May I even have a list, or their spouse may have a list, or their fiance, congratulations, may have a list. You go in, but the moment that you grab that shopping cart, you've given up control. You know you're going to put more into that shopping cart than you came in. So as you walk up and down the aisles, your eyes, you're seeing so many things. If your product has shelf impact, gets someone's attention, then right away they're looking, oh, what is that? And now that conversation begins between the product on the shelf and the customer. Number one, what is that? That package has to tell the customer what it is. And that's more important than having your logo big. And I have a story in my book about how I made those mistakes at a presentation for Walgreens, and I got absolutely humiliated because I didn't understand packaging. Number one, that package has to tell you what it is. Go to the over-the-counter section of any drugstore or big box store, and you'll see no matter how much people know what Tylenol is, or Advil, or Motrin, it still says pain reliever, just to remind you what it is. When the automobile came out, when the car came out, they didn't say, hey, look, it's an automobile. What is an automobile? We don't know what that is. No, it was a horseless carriage. That's how they sold it. Put on it big. What is this? Then, number two, why do you want it? What's the benefit? Why do you want this little wonderful corrugate knife? I'm going to take a quick aside. I got to show you this. This is actually, so when you're figuring out what types of flutes, A, B, E, paperboard, I love this little sample thing here. But so why would you want this? Never wonder what size flute you're asking for again. You can do that through photos. You can do that through a statement. But what is the benefit of buying this product? So number one, what is the product? Number two, what is the benefit? Number three, what's the features? Contains, I don't know, whatever this is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, contains samples of 6 types of corrugate. Now that's the features. That's what's actually there. 1, 2, 3. What is it? Why do you want to buy it? What are the features? If you do that on your package, you're already 65% down the road. Then you can make it better. You can make it engaging. Make sure it has that shelf impact we just talked about. Make sure that it stands out from the competition at the same time it fits the competition. What do I mean by that? Airborne. If anyone's seen Airborne in stores, when they first launched, and I get to bring Walgreens up in this story again, when they first launched, they went to Walgreens. They looked at all of the medicinal, Airborne's homeopathic, doesn't have active drug ingredients. They looked at all of the active ingredient medicinal competitors. They saw what size the package is. They met that requirement. Same size, fits in the shelves, same thing, looks like it belongs. Then they looked at, basically the style at the time was always nice and clean. Oftentimes it would have like a big blue cross or a red cross or lots of white, very professional. And they said, we're going to stand out. They came up with this puke yellow color for the background. They had a primitive drawn picture of someone looked like it came from a 1960s Keep on Trucking cartoon. They basically showed a big nose that was red and swollen from someone on an airplane. And it was different, so different than everything else on the shelves. The customers walking along that aisle stopped, saw it. They did heat maps. They knew that customers' eyes were going directly there because it broke every rule. They picked them up. They looked at us. Okay, we'll try it. And a homeopathic, non-active ingredient competitor to all of those that had, pseudoephedrine and other things in them, outsold them because packaging had that shelf impact. So get the shelf impact. Tell people what it is, what's the benefit, what's the feature, shelf impact. What did I not mention? Oh yeah, the logo, the brand, not important unless you're Apple. If you're Apple, the same rules apply though. What did Apple do when they came out with their iPod? They didn't say, hey, look, it's another MP3 player. We're going to try to compete with the Nano Rio. And you guys don't know what the Nano Rio is, but it was the number one MP3 player until Apple came along and said, we can do it better. But they didn't say, we're just like the Apple Rio, or the Nano Rio, but we're better. They said, we are. Does anyone remember what they said when they launched?
No.
We're Apple. Apple iPod. 1,000 songs in your pocket. That's a benefit right there. It explains what it is, and it tells you why you want it. 1,000 songs in your pocket. It's one of my favorite slogans of all time. That packaging is going to tell people what the product is, the benefit, what's the feature, have shelf impact, and then you win. And that becomes that success when it comes to packaging. Boy, you touched the hot button subject with me.
Well,
it was an important topic.
Yeah, and I have a question too, and I'm gonna break my own producer rule here, and I don't care, I get to do that. So when you're talking about the package impact, because you mentioned a store when we were talking about the pillowcases, you mentioned Francesca's, and obviously I'm the demographic for places like Francesca's, Dress Up, Branches. There's one in downtown Woodstock called Fashion Cupcake, and a lot of times in these boutiques,
interestingly enough, that was my podcast name. I used to be called Fashion Cupcake, but the podcast didn't take off. Who knows why? Okay, I've completely taken you off track on that one.
But a lot of times in these boutiques, I actually
Fashion
notice
Cupcake.
A lot of stuff is unboxed. There actually isn't any packaging. Is that a discussion that let me track back. Is that a decision that the store maker Jesus, Stephen, you threw me all the way off. Is that a decision?
Fashion Cupcake. That's what the lead cupcake decided. Yes.
That's what they decided. Is that a discussion that you have to have with the store owner of like, keep this in the packaging or not? Or do they get to just kind of decide because then they own it?
No, they'll decide, because that comes down to, it's called merchandising. The larger chain stores will try to keep everything boxed as much as can so they can put the box on the shelf. Smaller independent, smaller chains, more chains with more of a personality or looking for an experiential shopping experience, they will merchandise with product right out there. You go to a decor store, a home store, you go to Michael's, you'll see a lot of things right out there where people can pick it up, touch it, and feel it. And then when you buy it, it's the box. You'll see the box on the lower shelves
Hmm.
and so on like that. That's merchandising. If you have something that has strong visual appeal, that's fabulous. But I can use the exact same example here for Francesca's. Where is it? We actually had a little display for Francesca's that was wrought iron and fit into their whole style and everything else, because the size of pillows to put the two pillows inside the pillowcases and put them out was too large for Francesca's to do. So for this, they want it in the package. On the other hand, independents and specialties that did put the pillowcases on pillows and put them up on display, the sales went through the roof, because it's all called merchandising, and that's a really major decision by retailers.
Well, maybe that'll be our part 3, merchandising by Steven Selikoff.
Well, I've got to tell you, there are lots of things I wanted to touch on here. I'm going to touch on a couple because it's the end of the year and looking into 2022. I mentioned that I'm not a big believer in fancy packaging for Amazon. And I'm also going to tell you right away, I'm not a big believer in premium branding on Amazon. During COVID, a lot of studies have been done by non-Amazon companies, statistical companies, Nielsen, for example. And they have shown that whatever the online platform is, customers have spent 27% more time online looking for a better price. Prices become really important to customers. So no matter how much you think, hey, my brand is important, it is to a small percentage of customers. But broadly, price is going to be very important. But if you move away from premium branding and you say, what is the trend we should be looking for in 2022? You're going to get my prediction here. We need to come back together this time next year to see if I'm right.
Okay.
Last year, this time, I said Amazon's going to become more strict with insurance, and they did. I think they're even going to come down tighter on that and probably start looking backwards. This year, climate pledge friendly products. That's going to be huge.
Okay.
Now, there's already a climate pledge program. You can sign up and get reviewed and stuff like that.
Right.
Amazon, I'm here in Seattle. Amazon bought the naming rights to what we used to call Key Arena. It's where our new hockey team plays, and once we get basketball, it's where basketball's going to play. They didn't call it Amazon Arena, even though that sounds right. They didn't call it Prime Arena, even though things are played in prime time. They named it Climate Pledge Arena. It's big green letters. Last May, June, Amazon has 14 leadership principles. Everything at Amazon has to align to at least one of these principles, if not more. Everything. I've been interviewed by Amazon twice, and the recruiters, if they want you to get the job, will send you a list of the principles beforehand and say, know these and make sure every answer aligns to them. When you're pitching any idea at Amazon, if it's not aligned to the principles, it's not even discussed at a meeting. It's just kicked out. For the first time since 2015, this last spring, Amazon added 2 new principles. One was how they manage their employees in that relationship, and the other was for Amazon to be aware and friendly, friendly to the environment and to the future. I forget the exact wording, but it's actually one of their principles now. This is a major step for Amazon. So they've added to one of their principles to be climate and environmentally aware and friendly. They've named their big arena the Climate Pledge Arena. And if you go out online today and you just search for anything and you click that little drop down of filters, for some products, they've actually made that Climate Pledge checkbox higher than the brand checkbox and higher than the number of star reviewers checkbox. They are moving that up on the list. I think Amazon is going to tweak their algorithm to favor climate pledge friendly products. I think they're going to come up with new badges for multiple badges for climate friendly pledge products, because there's lots of ways of doing it. Is it reuse, recycle, and so on. And I think that they may even come up with some sort of new display headers or frames, or even structure the whole display to focus on climate pledge friendly products. So that's my prediction for 2022. And it comes back to the question you had, Francois, about packaging. If you're going to be doing a fancy package for Amazon, but it's wasteful, then I think that's going to drop you in listings. If you're going to do something to try to make your product seem premium and it is anti-climate pledge friendly, you're going to suffer compared to someone who says, hey, we're going to keep this in earth-friendly packaging. We're going to make this an earth-friendly product, and not this is a premium product that you want our brand. I think that's what we're going to see in 2022. Now it's going to be interesting to see if I eat my words or if I'm right a year from now.
I hope you're right.
I think it could lead into an entire different conversation too. But to piggyback on that, if brand owners and just company owners in general aren't fully aware of something called ESG, or environmental, social, and governance, that these major corporations do, they're given scores. And if you're trying to get into big box retailers, look at what score they're looking to boost and align yourself with that too. That's
and Walmart is huge on that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, brands like Nike, for example, huge on the social and governance side. So I mean, it's important to familiarize yourself with what the big box retailers and just the major players of the world, I think, are doing, and just trying to incorporate some of that into your business, I think, is important. So that's awesome. We are going to have you back on next year this time, find out if this is true, and if it is, I will personally send you a magic ball every year. On the bottom of that magic ball, you can write down your predictions, and we'll check it the next year too.
When I was at Microsoft, a lot of people know that I was global business manager for worldwide retail sales and marketing. But prior to that, I was also global business manager for what we call communication sector. And I was very lucky and honored to write our forward-looking predictions for one of the years. And of course, my boss, who ran the whole division, was under Steve Ballmer, goes through it and red lines a lot and changes a lot and everything else. But I got at least out the first draft of our memo, our WISM memo, and I was taught by the best. That's how to look for trends and where there's noise, where there's smoke, and where there's meat, and how to separate that, as my boss used to say, separate the meat from the sizzle. So I'll tell you, I'm pretty darn confident that this is going to happen, and it's going to take a lot of people by surprise because they're not thinking about it right now.
Yeah, it's on the forefront of their minds. They should start, definitely.
And we will absolutely should.
And we will absolutely have you on again, Stephen. Thank you so much. For anybody who didn't catch the first episode and maybe doesn't know where to get a hold of you, where can they learn more information about your company, about Product Development Academy, if they have any questions? I mean, you're all over the Facebook and the groups. Oh, and book.
Yeah, I'm the one that gets, somewhat controversial.
There's a few hot takes.
Postings.
Honest. I would say honest.
There are. So there we go. It's right. I love it. Productdevelopmentacademy.com. Check it out. You can learn about me. You can learn about my program. My program is Amazon agnostic. So stay with your favorite coach and your favorite way of learning and selling on Amazon. I'm there to help you expand that to off Amazon, to in-store retailers as well. Because like we said at the beginning, you want to be where customers want to buy your product. Don't be frightened of in-store retail. If you can succeed on Amazon, you can succeed at in-store retail. I'm going to come up with one more number. We were talking about how fast TikTok grew. This is a number that people are always surprised to hear. According to the Department of Commerce, eCommerce as of third quarter, of course, it gets a fourth quarter bump every year, but as of third quarter this year was 12.4% of retail in the US.
Mhm.
In store is the rest. That is 87.6% of retail happens in stores. You want to be there, and it's not difficult. So come out to the site, check, we'll talk about it. More importantly, set yourself up for next year by saying, where do you want to be? How do you get a strategy to get there? Whether you're going to be looking to change what your products are on Amazon, how you're going to package them, like we just talked about, maybe think about being more green, think about off Amazon, whether it's Walmart.com or eBay. I mean, people forget, but in Australia, eBay is still huge, larger than Amazon in many cases. Or if you want to go into in-store retailers, and I can help you do that part of it, but make yourself a plan. Do it. Make 2022 the year that's just extraordinary.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Love it. Love it. Stephen, thank you again. And thank you for everybody who tuned in and listened. As always, if you guys liked what you heard today, be sure to give us a thumbs up, comment with your thoughts, share with your friends, subscribe to the show, turn on those notifications and automatic downloads. And that way you'll never miss an episode with leaders in supply chain and e-commerce like Stephen Selikoff. Stephen, thank you. We'll talk to you soon, dear.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye, guys.